Hello and welcome. You're watching Times Now with me, Akanksha Khajuri, and we are coming to you live at 5:30 a.m. in the morning, which is 8 o'clock at night in the United States. This was the deadline that was set by President Donald Trump for Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz and make a peace deal, or else power plants, bridges would be bombed. That deadline has now been extended, and that is the big breaking update that is coming at this point in time. Less than 2 hours before the deadline expired, Donald Trump has said that he has agreed to a proposed 2-week ceasefire between the US and Iran if the shipping traffic is allowed to move through the Strait of Hormuz. So that is one of the conditions that has been put forth by Donald Trump. Also, on the other hand, we are learning that Iran's foreign minister Abbas Araghchi has said that Iran will agree to end the fighting if the attacks against Iran are halted. The US president, remember, had set the deadline of 8 o'clock, that is Eastern time, for a deal, or else a whole civilization, just a while. In fact, he had put out on social media, whole civilization will die tonight. But after that, we are learning that now the deadline has been extended further. Just 2 hours before the deadline was to expire, Donald Trump has said that he has agreed to a proposed 2-week ceasefire between the US and Iran. But the condition is that Iran must completely and safely open the Strait of Hormuz. For more on this, let me go across to our consulting editor, Srinjoy Chaudhary. Good morning, Srinjoy. This is a sigh of relief. In fact, Donald Trump, remember, had said that he will wipe out the entire civilization, and now he has extended the ceasefire, the deadline to bomb Iran as well. Give us more details on that.
It's very reassuring that both sides have declared victory. So if you've already won, then there's nothing more that needs to be done. And it's equally reassuring to hear the silence of the guns, because what could have happened, at least the threats from both sides, were very, very worrying, because President Trump had said he would bomb Iran to the Stone Age, which means the destruction of power plants, roads, highways, railway lines, lots of things. And that process had just about begun. On the other side, the Iranians knew what they were going to target: Israel and the Gulf states. And that meant not just Haifa, which is a port, cities, also power plants, refineries, water desalination plants, the whole lot. And that would have brought in darkness, literally, to that entire region. Millions of people would have suffered terribly. The fact that even after the fighting that has gone on for 40 days, there has been so many problems, so much destruction. But at least we have been spared the kind of darkness that would have enveloped the entire region if all these areas had been struck. If roads, highways, power plants, anything, railway lines, if all of this had been struck, things would have been much worse.
Absolutely. So it remains to be seen whether the deadline will sustain this time, the ceasefire will hold on or not. But less than 2 hours before the deadline expired, Donald Trump has said that he has agreed to a proposed 2-week ceasefire between US and Iran if the shipping traffic is allowed to move. Let me take you through what Donald Trump has posted on social media, and this is the most important point. Based on the conversation with Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and Field Marshal Asim Munir of Pakistan, wherein they requested that I hold off the destructive force being sent tonight to Iran and subject to the Islamic Republic of Iran, agreeing to a complete, immediate and safe opening of the Strait of Hormuz. I agree to suspend the bombing and attack of Iran for a period of 2 weeks. This will be a double-sided ceasefire. The reason for doing so is that we have already met and exceeded our military objectives and are very far along the definitive agreement concerning the long-term peace with Iran and peace in the Middle East as well. We received a 10-point proposal from Iran and believe that it is workable basis on which to negotiate. So this is in fact a sigh of relief. He has said that the 10-point proposal that was sent by Iran is still workable. So this is in fact a post that has been done by US President Donald Trump on social media, in which he has said almost all of the various points of past contention have been agreed between US and Iran, but a 2-week period will allow the further negotiations to follow. So that is as far as Donald Trump is concerned. Coming back to you, Srinjoy, on that, there are still point of contentions because he has put out a condition as well. He has said that there will be ceasefire in place for the next 2 weeks if the shipping traffic is allowed to move through the Strait of Hormuz. But in the last few days, we have seen Iran has said that they want legal right and a say as far as this crucial waterway is concerned. So there is still, it appears, some sort of divergence.
There are, of course, sticking points. But the point is that there is enough convergence to have a ceasefire. Now, once you have a ceasefire, then sensible minds can be involved. People can sit down, discuss these things, and sort out the sticking points. There are, of course, you're absolutely right. It's not that everything is done and dusted. The fact is that there is a ceasefire for 14 days. You look at it from either side. From one side, it's very reassuring and it's very helpful that there is a ceasefire. On the other hand, the ceasefire is going to last 14 days. So now it's up to both sides and every other side involved, the Israelis, the Pakistanis, the Turks, the Egyptians, the whole world, to basically find a solution to all these problems that are still outstanding. And if there is a will, because 14 days of peace after 40 days of fighting is quite a long time. So at least some assessment can be made of the problems. You can work towards them. The main thing is the ceasefire. Because even yesterday, when he talked about the end of a civilization and so on, President Trump left that window open. He said that he was hearing good things and he hoped that good things would happen and so on in his final tweet. Even in the one that spoke about the end of civilization and so on. So that window was also open. You heard the Vice President, J.D. Vance, speak, and he too spoke about the fact that talks were going on and negotiations were going on and so on. What it really meant was that they were waiting for some kind of reaction from the Iranians. And Vance made one very important point, very significant. He said that, number one, the Iranians take a while to decide. It goes from one place to another place to a third place and so on. What it meant was the Iranians would take time to discuss the entire issue. And he and the United States was ready to give time. Thirdly, what seemed important at that time, and these things were all put on air by Times Now, was the president was going to end a civilization. But he had also given his vice president time to find a solution.
Absolutely.
Now, he had
for now, what we know so far is that there is a ceasefire for 14 days and there will be no bombing on the power plants as far as Iran is concerned. So there is a little sigh of relief, at least for the next 2 weeks. Stay on with us, Srinjoy, to get us more perspective. I'm also joined by our guest, Colonel Utkarsh Rathore, who is a defense expert, Angie Wong, who is Miami GOP committee from that committee, and Christopher Hale, Democratic strategist. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us here on Times Now for this crucial story. But before I come to you, all of you, we have another breaking update coming in as far as a response from Iran is concerned, because we're learning that Iran has confirmed a 2-week de-escalation, and this confirmation has come in from Iran's foreign minister. In a post on social media, he has confirmed that Iran has also agreed to this 2-week of ceasefire. Let me take you through what Iran's foreign minister has said. He said, on behalf of Islamic Republic of Iran, I express gratitude and appreciation for my dear brothers, Prime Minister of Pakistan and Field Marshal, for their tireless effort to end the war in the region. In response to the brotherly request of the Prime Minister of Pakistan in his tweet, and considering the request by US as well for negotiation based on the 15-point proposal, as well announcement by the President of the United States about acceptance of the general framework of Iran's 10-point proposal as a basis for negotiation, I hereby declare on behalf of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, if attacks against Iran are halted, our powerful armed forces will cease their defensive operation for a period of 2 weeks. Safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz will be possible via coordination with Iran's armed forces and with due consideration of the technical limitation as well. So that is a big reaction that is coming from Iran, going on to say that they will agree to the ceasefire if the attacks against Iran are halted, and also that is also through the coordination with Iran's armed forces. So it remains to be seen how this really pans out in the coming days. Let me go across to Colonel Utkarsh Rathore, our defense expert. Thanks so much for joining us here on Times Now. How do you look at what has happened in the last 24 hours? Because there were threats by Donald Trump that he will wipe out the entire civilization as far as Iran is concerned. And now a ceasefire that has been announced and agreed to by Iran as well.
Good morning, Akanksha. The last night was really very tense for everyone. And this ceasefire thing comes as a sigh of relief. And it's the same 10-point ceasefire plan of Iran, which was actually briefly rejected before this wiping out of civilization threat came in. So this 10-point ceasefire plan, the most sticking thing is that attacks on Lebanon will also stop. And if the Hormuz thing, Iran says that it will be collecting toll with Oman for every ship to pass, then if it is free passage as per the demand, so then there will be a sticking point of reparation, war reparation, which Iran has been demanding. But as for now, this is a very good achievement on the part of Pakistani Prime Minister and the Field Marshal, that they have been able to push this thing through, and we are seeing a new dawn in the Persian Gulf and in the Middle East, that for at least 2 weeks there will be no war. And I hope that during this time they will be able to force out a permanent peace plan. There's one sticking point that still remains. What is the reaction of Israel? Would Israel stop attacking Iran? Or would Israel stop attacking Lebanon? Because these two things may also break this peace plan. So cooperation from Israel is also very, very important.
Absolutely. So it remains to be seen whether the ceasefire will sustain over the coming days or not. Let me also bring in Angie Wong. Thanks so much for connecting with us. As far as US is concerned, they had a 15-point plan. Iran had a 10-point plan, and they were diverging because as far as Iran is concerned, they were asking for the payment. As far as war is concerned, also a stop of attack on Hezbollah in Lebanon. So that was in fact one of the sticking points as far as the ceasefire and the peace plan is concerned. But as of now, after the ceasefire has been announced, which party do you think has the bargaining chip?
Well, it seems like both sides are claiming victory. You have the U.S., who's very happy the Straits of Hormuz is finally open and free and clear for passage for all shippings, at least for the next 2 weeks. And of course, there's going to be major military there just to ensure that there is peaceful passage of all the remaining oil tankers that have been stuck there for over a month. And then you have the Iranian state television claiming that Trump blinked, that they got everything that he wanted. Both sides are going to try to claim victory. This is, they're talking to their constituents. We did just get reports that Israel has also agreed to the 2-week ceasefire as well, which means that they will not be launching. Although I did hear earlier reports that there were some launches around the time that this deal was made, about less than 2 hours ago. So finally, cooler minds prevail. It seems like now there's a real window of opportunity to actually discuss whether it's the 10-point plan, the 15-point plan, or some sort of hybrid. It would have been catastrophic if nothing was said and no deals were made. We know that President Trump was very, very serious about flattening Iran tonight, and we were all waiting for fireworks here in the U.S., but luckily that did not happen. I'm going to end with this. U.S. oil prices have crashed over 21%. It is below $95 a barrel as we speak.
Absolutely, and that is another sigh of relief, and we will be keeping a track on that. Let me also bring in Christopher Hale. Thank you so much for connecting with us. The deadline has been extended for 4 times now, for 2 days, then for 5 days, then for 10 days, and now this time for 14 days. Do you think, in your assessment, this will sustain this time around? Because Iranians time and again have been saying that they have trust issues. The negotiations were underway in Feb earlier this year, but they later said that they felt cheated and were attacked by the United States. So this time around, for the 4th time when the deadline has been extended, and this time for 2 weeks, do you think it will sustain?
I think it's tenuous per usual. I mean, we were told over a month ago that this war had been won. In fact, we were told last June that President Trump had annihilated the Iranian nuclear capacity. We've been told since 1996 that Iran is weeks away from developing a nuclear weapon by Benjamin Netanyahu. So I think a lot of the players in this war are not trustworthy on both sides. So I don't know if we can have trust that this will be a long-term settlement or not. I'm actually quite skeptical that will last the 2 weeks. Fox News reported just minutes ago before we got on air that Israel has skepticism towards the ceasefire. They went along, but how long will that last? New York Times reported today that in mid-February, Benjamin Netanyahu came and pulled the wool over our president's eye in the United States and coerced him into going into this war. For some reason, Benjamin Netanyahu time and again has President Trump's number. And so if Netanyahu has skepticism over this ceasefire, I'm not sure how long it lasts. I mean, some of the 10-point plan that Iran put out includes reneging on all sanctions, U.S. administration officials dating back to 2001. So it's 25 years. It includes reparations for the attacks that have gone on since June of 2025. Is the President of the United States really going to agree to that? Or are the American people and his base going to like that? So I'm not sure what will happen here, but I think the reality of it is that your GOP guest is bragging about $98 barrels of gas, $98 per barrel for gasoline. It was $60 a month ago. This has been a catastrophe from the get-go. I think that Donald Trump has put himself in a horrific situation. It's a lose-lose. Domestically, he's in deep trouble. His approval ratings have never been lower. They'll go even further, even lower up to the November election. And the catastrophic second presidency of Donald Trump has gotten even worse.
Absolutely, because in the last few weeks, we have seen that the approval rating of Donald Trump has come down as far as U.S. is concerned. Stay on with us. Let me also go across to my colleague Rishabh, who's been tracking all the details. Rishabh, there is a sigh of relief because there is a possibility, if we go by what Donald Trump has said, that the Strait of Hormuz could be open. So it remains to be seen what steps Iran actually really takes according to that. But this is not just a fight between U.S. and Iran. Israel is also involved. So do they take us through what statement has come in as far as Israel is concerned?
Well, that is the main crux of the matter right now. Colonel Utkarsh was rightly pointing out that, yes, we have a statement from Washington. Yes, we have a statement coming in from Tehran. Both the sides have now agreed for a temporary ceasefire, double temporary ceasefire for 2 weeks, where U.S. will halt all its operations, all its hostilities in West Asia, while Iran will open Strait of Hormuz, and ships can move in coordination with the Iranian armed forces. This is something that has come in from Foreign Minister Arghachi from Tehran. But as of now, this whole 10-point workable, quote-unquote workable agenda that Donald Trump is talking about also includes cessation of hostilities in the region, which means that Israel will have to halt its operations in South Lebanon as well. Has Israel stopped Operation South Lebanon? Not really. As of now, the operation continues. IDF hasn't come out with any statement. Netanyahu's office hasn't come out with any statement, and we are still waiting for a formal statement to come in from Israel. Remember what did the statement came in yesterday, and this is coming in from Pakistan, so we do take it with a pinch of salt. But yes, Islamabad did make a statement yesterday to certain media channels as well that the talks were always on track. It was Israel that was derailing it. As of now, we do not know what Israel's stand is. There were three main players in the war. Two have decided to hold the war, at least temporarily. The third one is yet to respond.
Absolutely. Let me also go across to Srinjoy. Once again, Srinjoy, Iran has said that the ceasefire does not mean that the war has ended. For the slightest of the error, there will be a big retaliation. Take us through these details.
A lot of what is being said or will be said over these next few days will be for the people of the country to tell their own people that, look, we have won. Now, first of all, both sides have declared victory, which in a sense is not necessarily a bad thing. Now, if the silence of the guns has to continue, then all the saner people will have to sit together and say that, look, let's find a solution. And 14 days is actually a good beginning. If you actually have 14 days to sit and solve your problems after 39 or 40 days of fighting, there is a possibility that, if nothing else, of course there are sticking points. There are huge sticking points as of now. Right, but the fact that the guns have stopped firing, that the bombing has stopped, and all of that ensures that people can sit down and work towards a solution. Some people will say that there can be no solution. The points are such that the history suggests that a permanent solution is impossible. Well, there are enough people who can say that. But at this point, the fact that we have 14 days in front of us, 14 days to find at least a longer period of ceasefire, that actually is a triumph. After 40 days of fighting and the destruction that has happened on all sides, the fact that there will be 14 days of peace, and an opportunity. No one is saying that the world has changed between lunch and tea. The point is that in these 14 days, there will be an opportunity to work together for another 14 days or another 14 months.
Absolutely. For the next 14 days, the conversation, the back-channel talks will continue to. So it remains to be seen whether the ceasefire will sustain after 2 weeks or not. All eyes will be on that. Stay on with us. We have another breaking update coming in. We are learning about Iran's 10-point condition that US has accepted. We are learning that US is fundamentally committed to non-aggression, continuation of Iran's control over the Strait of Hormuz, acceptance of the enrichment of uranium plan, and in fact, as far as seeking control of this Strait of Hormuz is also concerned, lifting of all the secondary sanction, termination of all UN Security Council resolution, termination of IAEA Board of Governance resolution as well. As we've been telling you, payment of compensation to Iran as well. They've been seeking a payment for the damages, withdrawal of the US combat forces from the region, cessation of the war on all fronts, including against the Islamic resistance of Lebanon. So these are some of the conditions that Iran has put forth that also relates to, in fact, as far as total control of the Strait of Hormuz is concerned, payment for the damages as far as war is concerned and lifting of primary and secondary sanction. On that, let me once again bring in my colleague Rishabh. Rishabh, take us through the demands that Iran has as far as the ceasefire is concerned, because they continue to want to have legal right over the Strait of Hormuz, want a damages payment as far as the war is concerned, and a complete lifting of the sanctions as well.
Well, see, one thing is clear. Donald Trump has, for the first time, said that there is a workable condition that can be agreed upon. And what is this workable condition? Is the 10-point agenda that Donald Trump received via Pakistan from Tehran. Tehran wants to, basically, what are the important things? Cessation of hostilities, which means that there will be no attack on Iran or its associates in the region, which includes Hezbollah, which includes Houthis, which includes even the militias in Iraq. Second, compensation for whatever losses they have incurred in the last 39 days. This either has to be paid out by Iran and Israel, by US and Israel directly, or would come in from what we see in Strait of Hormuz, and Iran starts levying fees on the crossing of vessels and get the reparation from that. Third, the ballistic missile continues. That is something which is going to be negotiated. But the security guarantee, the war operations are the main agenda of this 10-point agenda, and the Strait of Hormuz control is something that Iran does not want to negotiate further, because in last 39-40 days, Iran has realized that if they control Strait of Hormuz, they will have a security guarantee per se.
Absolutely. Stay on with us. Let me also once again go back to Angie Wong. Donald Trump has said that the 10-point plan that we also laid out for our viewers, that is workable. So it remains to be seen how this goes on for the next 14 days. But do you think US will agree to pay for the damages as far as the war is concerned, or Israel will stop the attack on Lebanon or on Hezbollah in Lebanon?
Yeah, I think there are some hard no's on the plan that Iran had put out. No to a nuclear program, no to U.S. troop withdrawal, no to Iran having full control of the Straits, and no to reparations. What would be interesting to note is that tomorrow, Mark Rutte of NATO will be joining President Trump, Marco Rubio, and Pete Hegseth, our Department of War head, to discuss NATO's involvement in this whole conflict. So I imagine that there's some sort of coalition or something that's being formed. So maybe the U.S. troop withdrawal, that may be replaced by NATO troops, for example. I'm just guessing here. But there is something in the works now that brings in a coalition versus just U.S. and Israel going at it alone.
Absolutely. So it remains to be seen how this really pans out. Let me also bring in Christopher Hall. How are Americans reacting? Because in the last few days, we have seen several open letters that were written to Donald Trump. One of them written by the legal experts, and they said that an attack on any of the power plants there would amount to war crimes there. So how are Americans, mainly the common man there, they are looking at this entire situation unfolding in between U.S. and Iran?
You know, one of the things I think I want to connect 2 points that might seem disparate, but I think are deeply connected. It's Easter here in the United States and in the Western world, and we just had Easter Sunday, and the Easter season just commenced. The Catholic Church has record converts here in the United States, over 100,000 converts. It's like having a growing movement here in the United States. Of course, we have a Pope who was born in the United States. And just a few hours ago, Pope Leo XIV decried what was going on in this war and called Donald Trump to tend down, to de-escalate. And I think that is a good indicator that the common median voter in this country is done with this war. The Catholic Church is done with this war. I think that over time we will see that the median Republican voter is done with this war as well. He never had Democrats with him on this, but I think the biggest concern that President Trump should have is that his own base. We saw numbers about a month ago that at the outset of this war, maybe 80 to 85% the Republicans support the war. Mind you, if you only have 80 to 85% of your base, you are going to lose an election in the United States. I think that number is down perhaps in the 60s and even further. So I think that he has lost the support of not only the median voter in this median Trump supporter in this country. And I think that all the political pressure is going for him to get out of this quagmire and get back to focusing on domestic issues.
Absolutely, because all of this is happening just ahead of the November midterm, so it remains to be seen how this really pans out as far as Donald Trump is concerned, because in the last few days his approval ratings have definitely come down. Srinjoy, coming to you once again, oil prices, we're learning they have plunged even more after the ceasefire announcement was made by Donald Trump just a while back. Shed some light on this as well.
Yeah, it's how you see it. Before the war, it was about $70 a barrel. Now it's 97. But you could argue that it was 120 or so, almost 120 during the war. So if it's come down from 115 to 97, it's an improvement. But let's hope it comes down to 70, because that is what India would hope for. That is what much of the world would hope for, because this, the higher the price of crude oil, the more difficult it is for the world and for India especially, because according to some calculations, if the price of crude oil goes up by $10, then India's GDP possibly falls by 0.2%. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, but it is for a country of 1.4 billion people. So ideally, India would want oil prices to come down to 70 or below, as it was before the war. And hopefully it will, because if the ceasefire holds, there will be a level of security. Among all the markets in the world, the oil market is one of the most insecure. So once the oil market gets a little more secure, it will help not just India, it will help all oil importing and also exporting countries. It will help China, it will help Japan, it will help South Korea, it will help much of Western Europe, and it will help exporting countries. All these countries that had to face these problems in these 40 days. They had to face numerous problems, attacks on their refineries, attacks on their desalination plants, the prospect of what's happening. Now countries like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, which exports a lot of natural gas to India, Kuwait, Iraq, even Iran. Iran perhaps less so, because it's been selling lots and lots of oil at fairly inflated prices. But all the others would benefit hugely from this. The world would come back to some level of normalcy. Of course,
because ever since the war had started, the oil prices had significantly increased, as you mentioned, from $70 a barrel all the way to 115 just 2 weeks back. So that was raising a lot of concern, and that was because of the attacks on Gulf countries and also blocking of the Strait of Hormuz as well. Thanks so much, Srinjoy, for getting us all those details. I would like to thank our guests, Angie Wong and Christopher Hale, for joining us and bringing your perspective on this. And now we have a breaking